Hi, everyone. I'm Reverend Nikki Happy, the Director of Marketing and Engagement at One Spirit, and I am sitting here today with Rosemerry Wahtola Trommer and our Spiritual Director, Reverend Diane Burke. How are you both? Welcome.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Nikki.
It's so great to meet with you. And so, Rosemerry, can you just share a little bit about who you are and the work that you do?
Okay. Well, I live in Southwest Colorado, and I'm a writer and a poet. And I've been writing a poem every day for the last over 15 years. And what's been incredible about writing a poem every day for 15 years is that it has developed as a practice that I share with other people. But beyond it just being about writing poems, it has changed everything about the way I meet the world. In the hardest moments of my life, it has been poetry that has allowed me to show up. That poems, lines from poems have met me in those moments like very good friends that the poems themselves have cradled me, have become lenses, have become openings for understanding, for comfort. Joy is a big part of it, about what happens with poetry. But the other part of it, I hate to sound dramatic about it, except I mean it, that I do feel as if poetry can save our lives. It allows us to be seen in the most essential ways, to be known and met in the ways that we most desperately need. And this is the most exciting thing I think I have to share, is that poetry and the practice of writing poems and reading poems opens up who we are, opens up what is possible, allows us to see the stories we've been telling ourselves, and allows us to long for authenticity in ourselves, and not just on the page, but in every way we meet the world.
Yes, and then speaking about the way that we meet the world, I asked Diane to join us so that she can share with us how she came to know you and how she introduced the team at One Spirit to your work.
Thank you, Nikki. I first encountered your work, Rosemerry, through gratefulness.org, which is a wonderful, wonderful, inspiring website that publishes poetry, knowing that that's one of the things that so deeply feeds our souls. So I first came across your work there and bought your wonderful book, Naked for Tea. And after the pandemic started, I realized that to nourish my own spirit during the pandemic, I needed to find ways to immerse myself in beauty. And I discovered your blog called 100 Falling Veils. And that's where I learned that you write a poem a day. So I started receiving your daily poems, fell in love with you. And every week in our staff meeting, we start our time together in our check-in with a poem as like a portal into silence. And then we spend 5 minutes in silence together and then just share what the poem evoked in us. And so I began sharing a lot of your poems with the One Spirit staff, the leadership team. And I have to say that when a week would come by that I shared someone else's poem, I would get the response, "What about Rosemerry?
Where's Rosemerry?"
Where'd Rosemerry go? So I realized that One Spirit was falling in love with you. And I reached out to you to see if you would do an evening with us, which you did last March, one of our Thursday evening gatherings. And I will say it was the most popular gathering we have held in the almost 2 years we've been doing them. So I've been thrilled to have you meet One Spirit and have One Spirit meet you. And I'm so excited that you're going to be offering an elective workshop for us.
Thank you. I'm really thrilled about it myself. I'm ecstatic to be aligned with One Spirit.
And so tell us about this workshop. What is the format going to be like, and what's the inspiration behind it?
Okay, so the class is called Wonderment and the Art of Being Alive. And in this class, we will read poems that are about finding the wonder in the world. We will talk about them, and then we'll write our own poems. And so each class will have a chance to read and write 2 different kinds of poems. We'll also have time to share in small groups, and then time to talk about process in a large group. So do you need to know anything about poetry to do this class? Absolutely not. Do you need to have ever written a poem before? No. Do you have to like poetry? No. Actually, the only thing really that you need to do is be willing to show up and know that you will write something, that you'll write something. Does it need to be good what you write? No. Does it need to be true what you write? Yes. And in this way, writing in this class can become a practice for understanding how letting language help us meet a moment opens us up to epiphany, or to anti-epiphany, which is just as interesting. When we discover nothing can be also fascinating. What I love about what I think is possible in this class is that we can learn how to meet ourselves on a blank page, how to meet that blank, which quite honestly is not that much different than meeting a blank, a silence, right? How do we show up to a blank and bring our whole self to that? And then how do we allow the words and the language, the images, the story to emerge from that and to surprise us, to open us up to what's possible?
That's great. Yes. And so after students take this workshop, what do you want their takeaway to be?
Well, first of all, quite a few people think they don't like poems. I hope that some of them show up to this class so that after our time together, 4 weeks, they can walk away and say, oh, I kind of do like poems. Oh, I kind of do like that. The other thing is, I think so many people feel like poems have made them feel stupid in the past. My big hope is that poems now feel like, after this experience, that people feel like that poetry has something to offer them and that they have something to offer poetry, which is true, that each time one of us writes a poem, we join our small voices with the one big conversation that is happening over continents and centuries, and how all of us are really exploring, what does it mean to be alive? And we can join our small voices into that bigger conversation. So I guess I'm hoping people feel thrilled with what they're able to do. Like, oh, I can do this. And it's, get this, it's something you can do for the whole rest of your life. You can, for free, and share it with other people for fun. It's just one of the most joyful, the potential for joy is so big. And I hope that people realize that play is such a big part of this, even when we touch the most difficult, painful subjects, even then, and maybe even especially then, the play, the joy of writing helps us to meet those moments too.